Hello, boys. You're looking at a long list of dudes. I tried to make a deck with this card, but I cut it down to one copy, I think, and then I had to cut the last one for like a halfling or something. You can play this card in a deck like this. That's why I came up with this in the first place, but I just don't think this is the card for this deck, because getting to put a counter on a creature each turn is pretty good for creature decks in general, but it's probably for more like a aggressive shell. So this is actually a list where I included this card as a 4-off, kind of like a more aggressive counters creature deck, where I think this card is best in. And I also like kind of misread it, I think, in the beginning, because I thought like creatures basically barely can't share creature types at all with each other, but you get to basically also play several humans together as long as they have like extra other types, and then you can just name the extra other types and still get the counters. So I think this could be where this card could be best, but I still came up with the deck and I played it and it was pretty decent. So this is where we are. And yeah, this is also a new card from the Lords of the Rings set, which also supports that theme, which is Radagast the Brown, 4-mana Avatar Wizard. And he basically says whenever another creature, or he himself, enters the battlefield, you get to look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the mana value of the creature. So he looks at the top 4 cards, 2 drops at the top 2, and so on. And then you get to reveal a creature card and get to put it in your hand if it does not share a creature type with any creatures that you control amongst the battlefield already. So this guy wants the creatures to be basically very different, and another creature which wants that. By the way, you can imagine this chains creatures together like a lot in the mid game, because you just keep playing creatures and they find other creatures. And a similar card to that is the how do you pronounce this? Menagerie Curator, which is a 2-mana mana rock, which gets to add 1 mana of any color, which is already pretty decent. But the reason why this card is in here as a 4-off is the text below. Whenever you cast a creature spell that does not share a creature type with a creature card in your library, you draw a card in your library. So that means you cannot have any creatures in the entire library that basically share creature types if you want to draw a card with creatures with this. So this can be like a super big deck limitation in a sense, and therefore it's kind of like tough to find creatures that still pull on the same string, which is what you usually want in MTG when you're at least trying to build a good deck, and this is what I always try to do. So I had to play around with ideas for quite a while, and then I came eventually up with a theme where creatures can kind of pull on the same string, and that would be mid-range. So each of these creatures, I think, unless the adversary all either generate card advantage for you or disadvantage for the opponent, or are mana acceleration. Mana acceleration would be the Prowler, which is in particular good in the mid game, where you have usually so many creatures to spend your mana on by reducing most of them for 1 mana, and then the rocks in the 2-mana spot and the 1-mana spot, this and that guy. And now I'm just going over the cards one by one, trying to not to spend too much time on them, because otherwise the intro will be a little bit too long. We have discard spells because they are good right now in the meta. We have the Might because it hates the ring. We have Dorks because they're great for mana acceleration as soon as turn 1. Of course, this needs other friends to work with, but we are full of creatures, in particular quite some 1s and 2s, so this should be able to add mana rather soon. Still, maybe something real quick to the discard spells. I don't play them as a 1-off because of the Curator. This is obviously nothing to do with that. The reason why I ended up with this when I built the version was basically, I mean, this for example can hit Crucius and the ring, which is pretty good in general. One of the main cards you want to hit is Crucius anyways, and then it also gets to exile them, and maybe they have like, let's say, a Atraxa in the graveyard, then you get to also hit that. You get to reveal the entire hand and see really what is going on, which is good, and you don't have to pay like any life or draft them any card. With this card you have to pay the life, you don't get to see each card, but you get to draw a card if you miss, which is like a big upside, of course. And this card has the upside that it also hits non-creature spells and creature spells, which is of course really good, and you get to exile them, but they get to draw off the card, which is obviously pretty annoying, but it's usually okay if you're gonna hit the Crucius or the Fable anyways, and then they don't get to, let's say, replace them right away with good cards. So all of them have like their up and downside, and this is why I made the spread, because I didn't really know what's the better one as of right now when I was playing them in the current meta. Then a removal spell in the 2-drop spot, which I had for best of 1 there. Otherwise I think in best of 3 I had 3 charms. Discard spell, Bowmasters, pretty good card advantage card, which gets card from the graveyard. Risak in particular pretty good in this deck because most cards in this list, if you pay attention, actually do not have a downside if they are an artifact or even have upside. Let's say you have mana dogs, you get to add mana right away, by the way, and it obviously makes it even harder for the opponent to then remove them. This made the cut as the zombie of choice because it basically just helps you to not lose to any creatures. It can, for example, trade with Shelly. It does not allow Crucibles to attack or force out valuable removal. It blocks the Fable token. So it really helps the theme in a sense, which is also to build a wall and being able to generate a ton of card advantage over time, and then helping to make the opponent not attack too much into you so that you stay alive, so that you can pull ahead with card advantage is really just useful for the theme. And of course it is a mana sink in the mid to late game, which is nice in general. And having those extra creatures is also, for example, useful for Spider, which works like with the Informant, Bowmasters, and the Prowler, or like mana dogs, which you also sometimes don't mind sacrificing to it. And Prowler is just nice to hit your land drop. I'm always in general playing one less land in the deck if I run this, but here we still have 25 and all the dorks and even Crossroads for scrying, so we really in general should never hit a land, which is nice. This is also nice to get lands, and don't underestimate the card. I think is actually pretty good, just being able to hit lands onto the battlefield potentially each turn. Just has the ability to pose a pretty real threat to the opponent, and you are happy to force out valuable removal spells with that from the opponent as well, especially if you, let's say, have, for example, like a Crucius to then pitch a land each turn into the graveyard to then attack with the Wayfinder the following turn. This can also be like a potentially pretty laughable inclusion, but also do not underestimate the Cabaretti Wrecker here, because same as the adversary, the Death Touch just helps you to stay alive and to kind of build that wall. And of course, because of these types, it also draws a card, so if you Curators or Radagast. But one of the other main reasons is because it supports the theme in a sense, because it generates card disadvantage for the opponent by being able to remove an artifact or enchantment, and notably it does exile it, so it also exiles the One Ring. Not too likely, but you can also generate card advantage in a sense when you would have an unblocked EDB creature that you then can play again with the EDB effect in a sense, if that would come up. Then this, of course, one of the main centerpieces of the deck. Ambergris can be like a finisher if you're discarding a ton of cards in your hand that you are able to draw over the course of the game, and when you specialize it for red, and then you can boink the face, or you can buff up a creature with green, or you can remove a creature with black. And this is the green one where you can buff up another creature. This is just main deck, I don't know, everything hate, artifacts and enchantments, graveyard, you can gain life, which can be like really relevant actually, especially if you are like in Chandra, Burn Rage, or Invoke Burn Rage. Pretty strong mana acceleration, also like graveyard hate, for example, against Atraxa. This is basically like a win condition, and the Huntmaster does also not draw a card, notably, because it is a human, same as the Curator, but it's just really important to have a go over the top way by usually being able to fetch the Chatmere in the mid to late game, and you can just usually easily cast the Chatmere, which either a Curator or a Halfling or even a Crossroads on white if you would for some reason not have any one of those without summoning Sickness in this very turn, and then you usually just win right away, because as I said, you're just building a wall by playing a ton of creatures that are not really good in attacking by themselves. Sometimes this is also good enough, especially if you have like Ambergris or some 3-drops that can attack, but usually it's just like playing creature, discarding their board wipe, and then playing Ambergris or better Huntmaster into Chatmere and then win. This is a good removal spell. They can also draw cards, can also act as graveyard hate in a pinch. This card's style was in the store for 80% off. This is why I have it. I don't spend money on scarecrows, and the card is also pretty good. It generates card advantage, and it dodges a GFTT, I guess, go for the throat. This is a snitch, but a pretty good one, especially if you run Fable of the Mirror Break. I had Fable in there originally, but then I really tried to play as many creatures as possible, and yeah, you can definitely play Fable in this list, of course. This is not really because I want Shelly in my deck. I almost like never play Shelly because I don't like that card. It's just pretty much in there for life gain, especially if they have opposing Shellys, to just not die to it, because you can just really die to Shelly with the Curators, of course. And I was playing this in best of 1 here, and in the time when I was playing this, people were not playing Orcish Bowmasters this much, and of course this is also a really annoying way to punish the Curator draw, and this is one of the reasons why as of right now I would definitely not play this in best of 3, because by the last times I was playing any decks in the format in best of 3, there were like a lot of Bowmaster decks, so but Shelly already can be like a huge trouble, so this is where your own Shelly or like a removal creature like the Spider are really important to have in the deck. Especially if you have like a Fauna Shaman, the Spider can be useful to just have a creature in the deck for this being able to really be like a toolbox to have answers to anything, or like just a proactive play, like getting your best card draw spell in the deck like Radagast. And we know from like Crucius how useful being able to go for like your best cards or like your most expensive cards in the deck can be. But I ended up cutting the Fauna Shaman for another 1 mana dork, but you can definitely include it. I'm also not sure about cutting or including it as of right now. And then I also have a Construct, which of course draws a card with the Curator. This I think is just a good card in general. Being able to get stuff back from the graveyard is good in general. Can also, by the way, get like a Radagast. Pretty good mana base. By being in the Jund colors, you have access to the fast lands. You probably don't even need the tri-land. Crossroads is probably where you want to be, but being able to just have untapped lands on the draw where you are kind of back already, and then this Cry can also be super valuable as well. Then we just have the toolbox here, just some cards that are pretty useful for the situations. Just let the Grats chill in here for the vibes, I think. I mean, there was like a logical reason for it. For example, if you don't have the 9 creatures for Chetmere and for some reason have a ton of mana, because sometimes you do, because you're just so late in the game, especially if you have all these like mana dorks, and then you might, as I said, just not have enough creatures for this. Let's say they like board wiped the turn before or something, and then maybe the 6 or 7 attacking 5/3s are getting the job done, whereas Chetmere wouldn't, but probably the +2/+0 buff and Vigilance and Trample is still better than this. It's just a cute inclusion. You can definitely just use something else for this, but because in best of 1 you only get 7 slots here, and then you really want to think about what you want to put in there when you play the Crystal Huntmaster in there. And yeah, those are considerations. And of course there's a bunch of other considerations. If you maybe already built like a historic brawl deck with all those different cards, you know what I'm talking about. You can sit in front of there like literal many hours. Maybe I just show it real quick. One of the like last builds I had was like more of a graveyard theme, and Invasions is also like a good idea for the archetype in general, because this draws at cast, and if you have invasions with creatures on the backside, they still draw you a card if you don't have, in this case, zombies or elementals already in the library, or like remaining in the library more likely. So finding good invasions can also be like a consideration, but the reasons why I don't have them is because of effigy, and effigy just does not work with this being a non-creature spell on the front side, of course, but this could just be good by being a removal spell on the front side, and then you get your zombie elemental on the back side. Good graveyard card, good graveyard card, good card in general, good graveyard card, good sack card, good card in general, and discard card, good graveyard card. There's like a lot of ways you can build this kind of deck, and this is like the counters version I came up with. You can definitely play red in there too, because you don't have too many Selesnya lands already. You at least have the fast land, and in Alchemy at least you have the crossroads, which is not where you want to be with aggressive decks, but you just really have to make sure that you can cast your spells still. So I could see Naya, because you also have the other fast land too, and then you could play like Kumano, Halana, and Helena. Or Rocco, not Thundering Raichu because it's double red, but Kumano is nerfed, Rocco is 3 mana and does not even add counters on the very turn when you play it, and Halana and Helena can be a 4 mana card. And if you have so many cheap cards, it can just be the case that you empty your hand on turn 3, and then you look at your 4 mana card in your hand that you can't even cast. Maybe you had already had a similar experience to that with your aggressive deck, but if you would be willing to make your mana a little worse, I think you could definitely include this strong 4-drop in Halana and Helena for the archetype. Otherwise, this I think could be a pretty good deck for the long list of the Ents. And now I think we hop into some gameplay with this list here. The first match I have is an extra match. It was played afterwards, but I thought it was kind of cool. That's why I included it there in the beginning. And another thing to say that for this video, I sometimes shortened the video, that I really just cut longer parts of it that were like kind of boring or like annoyingly much to edit for me. So this is why some matches are shorter or include like really only the key moments from them in there. But yeah, it's really just mostly for me about presenting the deck list anyways in the first place, and then just showcasing it a little bit on the ladder so that you see how it goes. And yeah, with that being said, I think now we just hop into some of those games. By the way, I'm also playing some games on stream, I think, from tomorrow when this video is being published. So if you want, you can check that out. I don't know what the time zone is, but in the noon time when it comes to Europe, you can look this up. It's like 2 hours after Crokis goes live, I think. But yeah, but if you want to catch me there, I have a link down there in the description where I play a deck which I think is very good for Alchemy Best of 3 right now when it comes to creature decks. I just finished the testing. The deck list is pretty refined, I think. I barely found anything that I would like to change anymore, so it's ready for being showcased, and I decided to make this on stream, I think, tomorrow. So if you want, you can check that out. But now let's check this deck out and see you in the arena. Bye-bye.
Anyone who harms my people must contend with me. This is what you get for hurting my people. Show them how we greet our enemies. Guards, to me! May the best mage win. It is me. Don't come any closer.